Just listen. I'm sorry what I did to Compton.
You are listening to
Fire emergency.
Please don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry, I killed that girl.
All right, so let's get this started. I am David, and welcome to the Grim Fix Podcast. I am here with my co-hosts JR and Charles.
Everyone.
Hey.
We are here today. First, I got to start off with how do you call that? A public service announcement, right? That's what you call it.
Mm-hmm.
The case we're talking about today is grim. Obviously, it's very, very gruesome. We're going to try to read the information. Yeah, it is disturbing. I'm trying to give you guys the most information I can. I did notice, like I was saying before, I did, some research and I looked at some videos and some documentaries, and I saw that they gave basically the same information I have here, and they didn't cut out the details. So
no, the letters, no, they didn't cut them out.
I don't want to half-ass on the information, but I do want to advise if this case specifically does have to do with obviously murders. We're going to be talking about the serial killer who later was named Albert Fish, and most of his murders most of his murders were children. So there are some gruesome details. We will be reading off of serialkillershop.com. It's a blog that they have there. It was written by Daniel Fan on January 1st, 2022. So in the show notes, I will put the link so you can read the full article. We will be sharing basically the words of this person wrote, giving you our commentary in between. But again, I just want to advise, if you have children, remove them. They shouldn't be watching this. They shouldn't be listening to this. And if you are sensitive, if you are squeamish, I wouldn't recommend listening to it, or at least like fast forwarding in the parts where we get into gruesome details. So with that said, let's get started with the show.
This is the Brooklyn vampire, not the vampire from Brooklyn.
Yeah, not the vampire from Brooklyn. It's the Brooklyn vampire. They also, the name I most found creepy, right, is like the boogeyman, the real boogeyman.
They call him the gray man also.
They call him the gray man because of his
hair.
Because of his mustache and his hair.
One of his victims.
That's how they described him.
They described him. Mm-hmm.
First, if you are listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us. If you have not done so yet, give us a follow, give us a review, 5 stars. I don't know, just tell the world how great this is. Share it with your family and friends. If you are watching us on YouTube, I also advise you to subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. Like the video, share it, blah, 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 blah. Another announcement that another clarification that I want to make is you have to understand that this podcast is technically a conversation between 3 brothers. That's what we do. Mm-hmm. We're not specialists. We're not detectives. We're not scientists. And this is why we also read from articles. We don't write this stuff ourselves. We find articles that describe the case, and we read you the ones that we find have the most value without being too long and tedious, but also not short and half-assing the information. Like last episode, we had to read 2 articles because one of them was I felt like it didn't just
with a little bit of chucking.
It didn't let me. It was a lot of chalking, and
chalking.
It didn't satisfy me, and we read another one, so it ran a little long, and I apologize for that. But for those of you who appreciate full information, then you're welcome. So yeah, let's officially get started. Cue the French fries, and let's start. So we're going straight into the case today because it is a long one. I have a few pages here, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to read all of this, but again, we're going to try to give you the most information possible, obviously with our commentary in between, because that's what we're here for, to have a conversation.
Correct.
Okay. So Albert Fish owns the special distinction of being one of America's most gruesome serial killers. The fact that he not only killed, but also ate children cemented his place in American history as the human version of the boogeyman. Fish claimed to have killed more than 100 children, but in reality, he was only convicted of killing one, Grace Budd. It was the murder of Grace Budd that sent Albert Fish to the electric chair. Albert Fish was born Hamilton Howard. Quote, what, right? Yeah, they put, quote, Albert Fish, because we'll explain why. On May 19, 1870, his father, Randall, was 75 years old at the time. His mother, Ellen, was 43 years younger than her husband.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Young.
So this dude was fucking old. Like, that's
75.
that's fucking old to have kids at that age. So
Is that even
already,
is that even possible?
I'm seeing a recipe for disaster, because I'm not
Missing
saying
chromosomes.
always. Yes, like not always, obviously, but there are many cases of old fathers, like that old, and children come out having some type of a condition or something.
Yeah, not only that, they won't last that long to even raise their kids.
Well, yeah, on the personal side, I think that's crazy, because the fact is, how long you think you're going to be around for your child having
You're
a kid at
lucky
that
as is.
age? And then the woman, I always say the same thing. When I see cases like that of these old ass men with young women, I'm like, you're setting yourself up, unless they're like rich, where they're going to leave you set up. You're setting yourself up to be a single parent.
75 years old and the machine still works. That is
It was 75. It was 75 years old. But
75.
how long? That was when he was born.
Exactly.
You know,
The
so
machine
how
was
long
still
they
working
been before he was born?
I don't know. All right. Albert was the youngest of 4 living children. He took on the name Albert after a deceased sibling after he grew tired of children calling him ham and eggs. I'm assuming because of Hamilton Howard, ham and eggs. Okay. When he was a child. By the time Albert was 5, his elderly father passed away. His mother was faced with the difficult decision to put her children in an orphanage until she could find a way to support them on her own. Fish's time spent in St. John's orphanage helped to shape him into the monster he became later in life. Fish was frequently subjected to physical abuse. Instead of turning from the pain, young Albert realized he enjoyed the pain inflicted upon him.
They used to beat the shit out of him.
I mean, I don't know if this is the only problem that I don't like about watching documentaries, because you start getting all the information mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
But I know in one of the documentaries I was watching, they talk about there were mental health issues within the family.
Right.
Not only like, I guess like his father's brother, like there was already a mental health history in the family.
So he had it also.
So putting that in there, right? That if it's hereditary, if it goes in the genes, then we can start seeing. It shouldn't surprise, right? Like obviously this is in the 1870s. Science wasn't as advanced as it is now, so obviously it's harder to tell, but just putting that out there so that you guys can start understanding where this is coming from.
So a person that enjoys the pain as a masochist, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he realized that he was a masochist like very, very,
very early. Yeah, very
Yeah.
early, because he was what? Yeah, when he was 10.
10.
Okay, so before he was 10, he was 5 when his father passed away. So let's say he was 5 or 6 when he went into this orphanage. So at that age,
He
He
realized
was probably
he
in
was
that
a
orphanage
masochist.
for like 4 or 5 years.
So it was before he was 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was there
That's
5 years.
crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. So when he
Masochist.
was 10, his mother had secured a government job and was able to return for her children, removing them from the orphanage. It was too little too late for Fish. The abuse had left its mark on the boy, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, these caretakers will beat the crap out of these kids. If not, they will put them to hurt each other.
That's insane, man. Like,
Well, you know how it was back then. It's not like now, you know. Now they
yeah,
look
but
upon
it's
that
just,
shit, you know.
I mean, these orphanages are to help. I mean, obviously, there's evil people everywhere. The crazy part about this, and I don't know about, well, yeah, it is St. John's Orphanage. So if it's St. John's, that means it's a religious orphanage, right? Back then, most things were like Catholic. But I was, yeah, if it was a religious orphanage, like I'm watching a show called 1923. It's one of the spin-offs of Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the storylines that are going in the show, it's about the Native Americans and how some of these Native Americans were captured and they were kept in these religious sanctuaries. And the point, I mean, so far what I'm getting from it is they wanted to erase everything that identified Native Americans as Native Americans. They didn't want them speaking their language. They wanted them to learn the Bible. They wanted them to learn like the religious Catholic ways, prayer, all that stuff. And when they did not do what they were asked, they would get, I'm talking about, beat down by priests and nuns.
Wow.
So just putting that out there.
How religious is that?
So, okay, at the age of 12, Albert Fish formed a relationship with a local telegraph boy. This young man introduced Fish to some disgusting practices such as urolagnia, drinking urine, and coprophagia, the act of eating feces. So I had looked up what urolagnia is, and it's the tendency to desire sexual pleasure from the sight or the thought of urination. So just thinking of pee would excite him. I've never heard that term before.
No, I haven't either. That I know it by the golden shower.
I know there's people that are into peeing on each other and all that shit, but
two girls, one cup.
that's as adults, right? That they develop these fetishes. It's already in the sexual atmosphere, right? It's already during the sexual act that they do all this peeing. I don't get it, but I know that there's people that like it. But I've never heard of someone having a condition where they get excited by the thought or the sight of peeing, seeing somebody peeing, right? This guy, he was like a peeping Tom, right? Because it says it here. It says that he would spend his weekends visiting bathhouses where he would spy on other young boys as they undress. He frequently answered mail order classified ads placed by women seeking marriage proposals with vulgar, obscene letters. This is something I also learned. I didn't know that women did that. What I'm getting from this, I don't know if you guys understand the same thing, is that women would put ads, and I'm guessing like newspapers and shit like that.
Yeah, because it's
seeking proposals. So it's
not
like
boyfriends, proposals.
Yeah, they were putting themselves out. They were basically pimping themselves out. And then
that was like the legal way?
Apparently, I never heard of this.
Yeah, but then again, ¿qué año fue eso in the 1870s? Like,
yeah.
what? Like,
Sí,
was there like?
It's like way back. They don't know what was a pimp.
Yeah, they didn't have money. They were poor. They like, I can get it. I mean, but they're no son tan pobre when they're putting ads on the paper.
That's something I thought. I was like, so you're paying to put an ad out, which back then was super expensive. I mean, compared to now money, it was probably like $2. But obviously, $2 back then was a lot of money.
Yeah, with a quarter, you do a lot.
So I had to read this again because I was like, oh shit. So I didn't know this was a thing. Again, you learn something new every day. It's like today I learned that when you say shrimp, right? You're not supposed to say, like, if it's a lot, it's not shrimps. It's shrimp. It's like moose. You know that moose, if it's one is moose, and if it's many, it's still moose.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about shrimp. I learned that today. I was corrected. I was like, oh shit.
Wow. I can see the smoke coming out of your ears. Like,
no, I love learning new things, but I was like baffled. I was like, really? They're like, yeah, it's not shrimps. I was talking about I was talking about how I like shrimp.
I didn't know it either, but yeah, it's funny watching you just saying it.
And I was like, so I'm talking about like, yeah, you know, so I love when I eat shrimps with ketchup. And first they were like ketchup. And then they were like, well, you know, it's not shrimps, it's shrimp. I didn't know that, but hey, you learn something every day.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know.
All right. So Fish's youthful pastimes were clear evidence of his mental illness. However, during that time in history, there wasn't a lot of information available for classifying and identifying serial killers in the making. By the time Fish was 20, he was living in New York City and working as a prostitute.
Here we go.
It was during this time in his life that he started raping young boys. As mother tended to do during this time in history, Albert's mother arranged a marriage for him. It was a fruitful marriage. Although 9 years younger than Fish, Anna Marie Hoffman gave him 6 children. In an attempt to live a normal, respectable life, Fish found work as a house painter. His employment did not stop his gross behavior, though. He continued to rape young boys. He once told the story of a male lover who took him to a wax museum. It was there that Fish became fascinated with penis bisection, which I also had a look. What is penis bisection? So the penis bisection is the splitting of the penis and or the scrotum. Okay.
It's like...
So sexual mutilation became an obsession that drove Fish to desperate attempts to fulfill his sick fantasies. It was in Wilmington, Delaware in 1910 that Fish committed his first mutilation. Albert met and formed a sadomasochistic relationship with a young man named Thomas Keaton. Keaton was only 19 years old and impressionable. It has been suggested that Fish took advantage of the young man, forcing him into the relationship. Fish eventually took the boy to an old farmhouse where he kept him and tortured him for 2 weeks. By the end of the 2 weeks of hell, Keaton found himself tied up with Albert Fish, while Albert Fish cut off half of his penis.
Damn. Which would be worse, you know, just dying or just staying without half a penis?
Well, you can survive with half a penis. And again, I don't know how advanced medicine was at that time, though.
Fucked up he's gonna be in the head.
So Keaton, okay. So by the end of the 2 weeks of hell, Keaton found himself cut off his penis. Fish later said of the young man, "I shall never forget his scream or the look he gave me." Fish's plan to kill the boy, cut him up, and take his body back to his home was spoiled by the hot weather. Fish was afraid the meat would spoil, so instead he poured peroxide over the gruesome wound, slathered it with Vaseline, plained a rag over it, handed Keaton a $10 bill, kissed him goodbye, and fled the scene. Fish claimed he never knew what became of the boy after he took his leave of the gruesome scene.
That's what I was talking about. You know, how fucked up he's going to be in the head, you know, after all that torture.
I'm still stuck on that he slathered it with Vaseline.
Hey, that's going to stop the bleeding.
That's true. I don't
Does
think
that work?
I don't know.
Does it work?
Yes, when I do a tattoo, that's what we use to stop the bleeding.
True. Forgot about that. Yeah.
More, you know.
I never thought of that. Well, that's why they do it, though.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's
So,
why boxers, when they box, they cover them up with a bunch of Vaseline when they're cut. So
I always thought the Vaseline was for just slipping purposes. Like,
not only that, but you gotta see when they get a cut on the eyebrow and whatnot.
yeah,
I thought it was
put
to
a
keep
big
it
glob
moist.
on it.
Yeah, stops the bleeding.
Interesting. I
It
never.
still bleeds. Don't get me wrong. It still bleeds, but it's not gonna be as much.
Yeah, it's not as messy.
Exactly.
Interesting. I never thought of that. Yo, I'm learning a bunch of shit today. I feel smart. All right. In 1917, Anna Marie left Albert and their children for a slightly feeble-minded handyman by the name of John Straub. Straub had once rented a room with the Fish family. Anna Marie and Straub fled the home with all the furnishing while Fish was at work. I gotta stop here for a moment. You have to be an asshole. It's not only, and I'm not defending Fish, but you have, what kind of asshole not only starts cheating on her man with another man, leaves him for the other man, leaves the house and her, what was it, 5 kids, 6 kids? And you fucking
6
take
kids.
the furniture with you.
You take the furniture and leave the kids.
Like, that's a whole different level of being an asshole. Because listen, if you want to run and I don't know, you didn't feel safe, whatever was the reasoning, I don't know. But whatever was your reasoning, you did not think of your kids in the least. Holy shit. Okay. So Anna Marie fled this while he was at work. When he came home, he found his wife gone, his home empty, and his children dependent solely on him. Not much long after she fled the home, Mrs. Fish and her lover returned to her family home, begging for a place to stay. Albert said Anna Marie could stay, but her lover had to leave. Yo,
the balls.
Anna Marie.
Yo, you would call her an asshole. Yes, that's with capital letters. She has the balls, the audacity to go back with her lover.
Yo, bro, I leave you for another man. I leave the home. I leave you with 6 kids, no furniture. And then I have the balls to come back. Hey, can I stay here?
With her lover.
With her man. Okay. So it didn't take Fish long. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So he said that the lover, right? So not much time at the home. Okay. But the lover had to leave. Okay. It didn't take Fish long to discover Straub hiding out in the attic. Anna Marie had been sneaking food up to him, as well as sneaking up to spend some time with him. Once discovered, Fish told his estranged wife she could stay, but her lover had to leave. But Mrs. Fish and Straub fled, so they left again. The Fish children never saw their mother place a foot in the family home again. After the drama created by his wife had ended, Albert began to act strangely. It is said this was when he began to suffer auditory hallucinations. So I'm guessing that I was going to look that up and I didn't, but I'm guessing that means you're hearing shit.
From the same
You're
thing.
hearing things, yeah.
So yes, right? What was it? His mom?
His mom was in the same situation.
His mom, yes, his mom used to suffer from. That's what I'm saying. There was a history of mental illness in that family.
Yeah.
And the fact that they decided to keep popping out kids is crazy to me, but okay.
No TV.
He also began to experiment with self-harm. Fish would push needles into his groin. He enjoyed hitting himself with a nail-studded wooden paddle. So this is a crazy part to me. It was reported that he would frequently insert lighter fluid-soaked wooden dowel, I'm guessing a towel, into his culo. He would push it into his anus and set it on fire.
Yo.
For fun.
It said, okay, it's a wooden dowel. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a dowel. I thought it was like towel.
No, it's a piece of
Towel.
wood.
So he would put a piece of wood in his ass
For
and
fun.
light it on fire.
And light it on fire.
Yo,
So he's one of the first jackasses.
Yeah.
yo, Steve-O
He was
ain't
the
shit
original.
compared to this guy.
He
Steve-O
was the
ain't
original
shit
jackass.
compared to
Johnny
this guy.
Knoxville.
Holy shit. So he would stick a piece of wood in his ass and light it on fire for fun. He went as far as to encourage his children and their friends to hit him with his nail-studded paddle. It was during this time that he began to experiment with cannibalism. Like sexual mutilation, cannibalism became an obsession of Albert Fish's. He would often prepare entire meals made of raw meat for his family in an attempt to quell his desire for human flesh. Throughout the dark period following the departure of his wife and before committing his first murder, Fish was evaluated by psychiatric hospitals numerous times. Each time he was declared sane and released into society. It was also during this time when Fish began to amass his collection of torture devices, a meat cleaver, a small handsaw, and a butcher knife.
Why would these doctors consider him sane?
Because that's
what kind of
that's what
tests?
you
they're
will
doing?
look at him. Look, this guy was slick. You know, he know how to speak. He know how to, talk to people normally. He didn't seem crazy. He didn't seem like a lunatic. So guess what?
But
That's
when
what
you're
did.
evaluated, I guess they ask you questions and stuff. I mean,
Yeah, but obviously he's not gonna tell him, no, I like sticking a dowel in my ass and lighting it on fire. That alone would leave him inside the psych hospital.
I don't know, man.
I think about that. Like, did he know? I mean, how insane is a person? And again, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But how insane is a person if they can play it off, right? If they can do these insane things and then act totally normal? Because
But that's
not. So why was he evaluated?
Exactly.
I doubt that he was like just randomly walking into these psychiatric doctors. Must have been somebody saw something, maybe his like general doctor.
Remember,
again, I don't know. These were different times.
Remember, he came from a family that was all mentally ill. So maybe it was because of that. They don't see anything in him. He's, all right now, all he's doing is hearing voices. So most likely that's, probably what he told them. I don't know.
But it says throughout the dark period following the departures of his wife. Like it says a dark period. Like he must have been
but
depressed.
that's personally. That's probably just
but,
personally, his wife bounced, took the freaking furniture, left with some dude. Obviously he's gonna be upset.
Somebody noticed something and
that's what I'm thinking. Like somebody must have noticed something. Let's say the way I picture it is, I don't know, he went to his general doctor. Hey doc, I hear shit. Something that simple. I'm hearing shit. And the doctor's like, yo, you gotta get checked, bro. Let's send you to
I'm not the right doctor for that.
But yeah, this is not my area of expertise. I'd go to a psych doc. Because it says he was evaluated a few times, not once, a few times.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know. I'm thinking this.
But wouldn't like in the olden days, like if they saw you doing crazy stuff or whatever, like wouldn't like police take you there?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's different times, so there's more information to this. I mean, this is what we have, but it just makes you think about it, right? Like why was he being evaluated? Somebody must. I mean, you must have seen something. It's like in the news when something tragic happens. And you always get those people, yeah, I kind of noticed this, but I didn't think, it was anything serious and whatnot. And so, all right. Around 1919, Albert Fish began stabbing young men who were either mentally handicapped or African American, as he felt these people wouldn't be missed. Fish was fond of paying children to help him catch other children so he could torture and murder them. If you notice, you remember Garavito used to do the same thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he would pay other people.
Interesting. And he would look for kids that he thought people would not
You know,
miss.
that's how fucked up you gotta be to get handicapped. You know?
Yeah, but like you're screwed in the mind, but you're thinking about, hey, like let me pick these certain kids. I mean,
He's
like,
not
you're
that
you're
screwed up.
Yeah, he's not that screwed
He's
up.
not that screwed up. It's just his liking, his fetish.
Okay, so
Even though you gotta be that fucked up to have a fetish. You know?
this guy so
no.
far everything he thinks is fucked up. Like, I thought Garavito was bad. I mean, that was the worst case so far. But reading this shit, like, yo, this guy had issues, man.
Serious issues.
Just, I'm still stuck on putting a piece of wood in your ass and lighting it on fire for fun. I've never heard of that. Anyway,
What kind of pleasure you get out of that?
that's why listen, people do weird shit. There's people that put hamsters in their asshole. Like, people that do that. I don't understand it, but there's been reports and people have gotten hamsters stuck in their asshole. It happens.
I think I saw an episode of I think it was South Park where they show the hamster up. It was Mr. Garrison.
Let me winks. Let me winks. Let me winks.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I was like, oh, then it must be true.
So, but see, I'm just trying to. I mean, I don't find logic in any of it, but just he would do it for fun. Like, what's must be the pain. I'm guessing is the pain.
Yeah, well,
yo, I was gonna say something,
No.
but let me shut up.
yeah, I wonder what it was.
All right. So none of these murders were verified with actual proof. Albert Fish made a lot of claims after his eventual arrest. Although there was no proof, Albert Fish victims numbered in the hundreds, according to him. By 1924, Albert Fish was suffering from a full-on psychosis. He truly believed God was commanding him to torture and murder children, although he had been evaluated by professionals numerous times.
There we go.
See how they
See, there you
mention it
go.
again?
What?
There they go again. See, he
Doesn't
was
make any
evaluated
sense, and none of this makes sense.
numerous times. In July of the same year, Fish spotted a young Beatrice Keel playing alone on her family's farm. Her mother noticed Fish lurking about and chased him off, saving the life of the 8-year-old girl. Later that night, Fish returned to Keel Farm and slept in the barn. He was discovered and promptly chased off by Hans Keel, young Beatrice's father. Albert Fish's next attempt was targeted at Cyril Quinn, a young boy he had been molesting. Fish offered the boys lunch in order to lure them into his home. While waiting for sandwiches, the boys wrestled on Fish's bed. The mattress overturned, revealing Fish's implements of hell, the knife, handsaw, and cleaver. The boys fled the home in fear for their lives. Once again, Fish's mission to kill and consume a child had failed. This caused Fish to up his game a little.
How far he's gonna take it up?
That's
Why would that little boy be over there in the first place?
I was just thinking, I was like, why are two boys? I mean, different times.
what?
Even though
He
in
offered them
these
lunch.
times now, there's some people that just don't
Dude,
pay
look,
attention.
that time I guess they were too trustworthy. That's the word.
People were hungry.
Because this next victim, the story, it's kind of weird, that the parents let her do this for some reason. So, yeah, they were too trustworthy.
In 1928, Albert Fish answered an ad seeking work for 18-year-old Edward Budd. The Budd family struggled financially. Therefore, Edward was hoping to find employment to take some of the burden off his father. Albert Fish answered the ad by showing up at the Budd family house. He portrayed himself as an average, not at all psychopathic, sweet old man looking for help around his home.
There you
The
go.
Budd family never suspected they were dealing with a deranged murderer.
That is
Albert
crazy.
Fish introduced himself to the Budd family as Frank Howard, a Long Island farmer who was willing to pay $15 per week for Edward Budd's help around his home. The Budd family could not believe their good fortune. They bought Fish's story hook, line, and sinker. Meanwhile, Fish planned to tie Edward up, mutilate him, and leave him to bleed to death before consuming him. Fish made arrangements with the Budd family to return a week later for Edward. When Fish returned to the Budd house as planned, he met little Grace. Albert became so captivated with Grace Budd that he changed his plans. Instead of Edward, his intended victim became the young girl. Albert's new plans included a story about a niece's birthday party that he wanted to take Grace to. Because the Budd parents were so enamored with the old man, they agreed. Grace Budd left with Albert Fish and never returned to her family. Albert Fish was not initially a suspect in the disappearance of Grace Budd. Police wrongly arrested Superintendent Charles Edward Pope. He spent 108 days in jail before he was found not guilty of the crimes against little Grace. An anonymous letter received by Grace's parents became the key to solving the disappearance of Grace.
Okay, this is where you gotta.
So this is where, what is it? Viewer discretion is advised.
Viewer discretion advised.
Disclaimer.
Listener at what is it? Viewer. Listener discretion advice and viewer. Even though I'm not going to show you anything, but you're just going to see me reading. But listener discretion is advised. This is a letter that Albert Fish wrote and sent to these parents, which is crazy to me. Not only this piece of shit decides to abduct their daughter, kill her, eat her, but he writes them a letter. And the letter says the following. Should I put a voice like, yeah, in November 1934. Yeah, right? That sounds like a... I'm going to put the voice. Hold up.
You can try.
In November 1934, a letter arrived. No, wait. This is the...
Dude, but suena like si está anunciando una película or something.
The letter starts on Sunday.
Okay, so let's start with... In November 1934, this is my voice. A letter arrived at the Budd home. Mrs. Budd was unable to read the letter herself, so her son, Edward, oh my God, read the chilling words to his mother. Here are a few excerpts from the letter written by Fish himself that eventually led to the arrest of Albert Fish. On Sunday, June 3rd, 1928, I called on you at 406 West 15th Street. Brought you a pot of cheese, strawberries. We had lunch. Grace sat in my lap and kissed me. I made up my mind to eat her on the pretense of taking her to a party. You said yes, she should go. I went upstairs and stripped up all my clothes. I knew if I did not, I would get her blood on them. When all was ready, I went to the window and called her. Then I hid in a closet until she was in the room. When she saw me all naked, she began to cry and tried to run downstairs. I grabbed her and she said she would tell her mama. First, I stripped her naked. How she did kick, bite, and scratch. I choked her to death, then cut her into small pieces so I could take my meat to my rooms, cook, and eat it. How sweet and tender her little ass was roasted in the oven. It took me 9 days to eat her entire body. I did not fuck her though. I could have, had I wished. Grace Budd's family were forced to hear these words from the hand of the man who tortured and murdered their little Grace. Parts of the Albert Fish letter were verified by police. Other parts of the letter were not. Facts surrounding the murder of Grace were accurate, although claims that Fish ate pieces of Grace were never confirmed.
The other article had like The
A
entire
little
letter.
bit more.
It was
Yeah.
horrible to read.
Yeah.
This is nothing compared to the other one.
That's why I said when I put it down, it says letter of confession.
Yeah, I don't know if we do we want to read that though?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I think the other one is worse.
Way worse.
The other one, right?
Too graphic.
So Fish overlooked important evidence on the envelope he used to send his gruesome letter to the Budd family. There was a small hexagon-shaped emblem in the corner that read NYPCBA. Those letters stood for the New York Private Chauffeurs Benevolent Association. After some questioning by the police, it was discovered an employee took some envelopes home to his boarding house room. He left them behind when he moved out. Police were able to track down Albert Fish, the next tenant to occupy the room. When Fish returned to his room, police were waiting. Fish pulled a switchblade on the police after his arrest to no avail. Fish never denied murdering Grace Budd. He did deny raping her, although he admitting to having several strong orgasms while strangling the young girl. So here, there's also information about this. It says that when they discovered where he lived, he was staying at like a home. I guess they rented rooms to people.
Yeah, it was.
So that's
It was like the back then the Airbnb.
Yeah, it was like an inn basically. It was a house and like a B&B. And I guess the person that lived before had left those envelopes, and that's why they were able to track it. But when they got there, the police got there, he was not there. And they asked the owner, where was this person? He had already moved out. So she said he was receiving these checks, I think from his son.
Yeah.
And since he was always moving around because of quote unquote work, he just set it up that the checks would arrive at the house. So when the check arrived, there was a detective that was like obsessed with this case at that point. So they contacted the detective and he rented a room there and he waited until this guy showed up to pick up his check.
Supposedly, if you go by the movie that they made about him, he was in his room. He had gone into the room. He saw a bunch of newspaper clippings. He had them all around, and he just decided to wait there. And he told the lady, the landlord, I guess it was, that I guess don't mention that I'm here. Just let me know when he comes here to pick up his check. So that's what he was doing, supposedly.
So after being arrested for the murder of Grace Budd, Albert Fish admitted to a few other killings. Francis McDonald was only 9 years old when he encountered the sick Albert Fish. The young resident of Staten Island never returned home after a day spent playing catch with friends. After a brief search, the boy's body was found hanging from a tree. He had been strangled with his suspenders after suffering sexual assault. Fish later admitted to attempting to castrate the boy, but took off when he heard people approaching the gruesome scene. The crime earned Fish the moniker the Gray Man after McDonald's friends reported seeing a man with a thick gray mustache and shaggy gray hair. He was reported as looking faded and gray. The murder of Francis McDonald remained unsolved until Fish confessed after being arrested for the murder of Grace Budd. Fish also confessed to the murder of 4-year-old Billy Gaffney after being arrested for the murder of Grace Budd. He confessed via a letter to his lawyer. Here are some especially horrendous excerpts from the letter written by Fish himself. Quote, I took tools, a good heavy cat of 9 nails, homemade, short-handled, cut one of my belts in half, slit these half in 6 strips about 8 inches long. I whipped his bare behind till the blood ran from his legs.
That's fucked up, yo.
I cut off his ears, nose, slit his mouth from ear to ear, gouged out his eyes. He was dead then. I stuck the knife in his belly and held my mouth to his body and drank his blood. It says his monkey and peewees and a nice little fat behind to roast in the oven and eat.
I'm guessing those are his private parts.
I made a stew out of his ears, nose, pieces of his face and belly. I put onions, carrots, turnips, celery, salt, and pepper. It was good.
That was some Hannibal Lecter shit right there.
Word. Then I split the cheeks of his behind open, cut off his monkey and peewees and washed them first. I put strips of bacon on each cheek of his behind and put it in the oven. Then I picked 4 onions, and when meat had roasted about a quarter hour, I poured about a pint of water over it for gravy and put in the onions. At frequent intervals, I basted his behind with a wooden spoon so the meat would be nice and juicy. In about 2 hours, it was nice and brown, cooked through. I never ate any roast turkey that tasted half as good as his sweet fat little behind did. I ate every bit of the meat in about 4 days. His little monkey was as sweet as a nut, but his peewees I could not chew, threw them in the toilet.
Now that is some Martha Stewart shit right
Holy shit. Stewart.
Martha Stewart, really?
there. Yeah, that's some cooking recipe right there. I mean,
He just went all out.
I'm shocked at the fact that
he could explicitly write it on
exactly
that letter like
like you taking the time to write all this and explain
Detenidamente.
like you're talking about how
So
you
thoroughly.
poured water to make gravy and
So thoroughly.
Down to the wooden spoon. The spoon.
my stomach is turning right now. Like, wow. This part, I didn't read this part. Whew. All
No,
right.
you gotta read the other one. The other one's a little bit more graphic. He did the Glasgow. He did the Glasgow smile.
Well, it says here that he cut him from ear to ear.
Yeah, the Glasgow. That's what they call it. I was looking it up. Like, how would they call it?
Okay, so it's no wonder Fish was dubbed the most vicious child slayer in criminal history. I wonder if that's true though, because Garavito had way more.
Yeah, well,
Way
maybe
more.
it's because it's here. Well, probably he's the
Maybe in
worst one
America.
here.
But this one was more vicious.
You think so? Because I mean,
I
this
see
is
that they
this
go
is
head to
insane.
head, bro.
Yeah,
Head to
that's what
head.
I'm saying. Because Garavito had some crazy, like, again, there was a ton of shit we didn't read, but there was some disgusting like things that he did, and he was all about sexual pleasure. This guy is gross because he's like eating them, but holy
The
shit!
sexual pleasure were more to males.
But like Garavito, like I think the part that freaked me out the most was the fact that he would rape kids and like stab them and like spill out their guts while he was raping them. Like that's insane. All right. It's no wonder Fish was dubbed the most vicious child slayer in criminal history. The trial for the murder of Grace Budd lasted 11 days. Fish was found guilty and eventually put to death via electrocution, the same execution as serial killer Ted Bundy. It was reported that Fish helped the executioner place the electrodes on his body. There were rumors stating the needles Fish inserted into his body caused the electric chair to short circuit, thus requiring twice the normal jolts of electricity to finish the job. So these claims have been since refuted. After Fish was put to death, his lawyer stated he had final words from Fish, amounting to nothing more than handwritten notes. The lawyer refused to read them, stating, "I will never show it to anyone." It was the most filthy string of obscenities that I have ever read. Fish was a vile human being, right up to the end of his life.
They have a Albert Fish quote.
So,
Wow, that meme right there, like
Yeah, that quote says, "I like to eat children. They are tasty."
Yeah, so there's a few quotes here. It says, as we have seen before, serial killers leave behind chilling quotes regarding their crimes. Albert Fish was no different in this way. Here are some especially chilling Albert Fish quotes. Quote, what a thrill that will be if I have to die in the electric chair. It will be the supreme thrill, the only one I haven't tried. End quote.
That is crazy right there. I mean,
Oh,
he was so following that.
he was really into
You know
his
when
fetish.
people are well, you know when people are on drugs, they go and chase that high, and they chase that high. I guess he was chasing that pain high. I guess.
Yeah, well,
That
he did help out the cops, you know, put the electrodes and shit.
he really did want to feel it.
Yes, he did.
So
And they had to
quote,
they have to amp up the shit, you know.
So another quote that he left was, quote, I always had a desire to inflict pain on others and to have others inflict pain on me. I always seemed to enjoy everything that hurt.
He's
End
a
quote.
masochist.
Quote,
Totally.
I like children. They are tasty. End quote. Quote, misery leads to crime. I saw so many boys whipped, it ruined my mind. End quote.
Yeah,
and the
that was
last
enough.
quote is, none of us are saints.
Well, that one is true.
So that is Albert Fish.
Well,
Thoughts?
there's the conclusion. There's still the conclusion.
There's a conclusion. Let's see. Oh,
Yeah.
so let's read the conclusion according to the writer of this article, which again, I remind you in the show notes, we will have the link to the article. So, conclusion. Albert Fish will always remain one of America's worst child killers. Few serial killers have achieved the brutality he is famous for, especially against children. Whether Albert Fish's time in the orphanage turned him into a serial killer or not remains to be seen. With gruesome as horrible as Fish, one has to wonder if he was born to be a killer or did his circumstances turn him evil.
There we
Again,
go.
the whole nature versus nurture. Yeah.
Yep.
Like most serial killers, it seems to be a little of both nurture and nature. While he claims to have killed hundreds of children, one in every state, he was only ever found to have killed 3. Those 3 killings were so gruesome, they cemented Fish's place in history as the worst killer of children in all of American history.
No. This dude.
And the question, is Albert Fish the worst serial killer you have heard about?
Like I said, to me, he goes head to head with Garavito.
So when it comes to children, I put these people in a whole different level. It's like a separate category for me.
Yeah, that's the way you gotta see it.
Like, it's just mental health, man. Mental health is it's a strange thing, right? It's such a broad spectrum. And even though I find that it's a term that's being abused so much in today and age, right? I mean, everybody claims to have mental health, and the truth is we can't say that they don't, right? Something as anxiety has become so normalized and things like that. And, society and the way society is, and we're so busy and we're so occupied and we're so, technology and all this, I guess it all plays into what society is formed into. But when it comes to children, it's just like, I have no words. I don't know. I have no sympathy for these people at all. Not that I sympathize with a serial killer that kills women. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just automatically a person who does these gruesome things to children. I mean, to anybody, but we're talking about children here.
Yeah, children.
It just,
how you call it? The most inoffensive, I think it is. Though.
I mean, children are children, man. They're
they're innocent.
Like, there's an innocence, and the fact that the gruesomeness, if that's a word, behind all of it, The fact that you torture, mutilate, then you eat them. And then you come and you write to the parents and you leave letters like, I don't want to say taking pride, because to be honest, if something that I noticed in this case, the things he did were of...
He just didn't have no remorse.
No. It's just, I don't want to say they were badass, because they're not. But it was like an attitude of, I really don't care.
Yeah, no remorse.
But I didn't get the sense. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a specialist or anything. I know dick about this. I'm just commenting on what I've read. But I didn't get, you know how, like, when we spoke about, what was it, last week's case, and we were talking about the whole narcissism behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that from him.
No, he just didn't give a fuck. He just wanted his pleasure. That's it. His pleasure.
But that's why it leads me to think this guy was nuts. Like,
I'm saying he's nuts to a certain point.
When you see a person that has no remorse, that it takes the time to detail what they did, he didn't have to listen. They caught the wrong guy when Grace went missing. They had the wrong person. They had no fucking clue. And the fact that he just decides to write this letter and send it to the parents. Now, my question is, was it maliciously, or was it simply him stating facts? Like, did he do it with like, oh yeah, I want to make you suffer so much, I'm going to do this. You understand? Or was it like, I'm just going to, like, I see nothing wrong with what I'm doing. I'm gonna send them a letter. Like, I'm gonna send them a letter and just tell them what I did.
He just explained what he did. That's it. He didn't care. You don't care what they felt. He didn't care what they the suffering that they were feeling.
Yeah.
He just did it. That's it.
Yeah.
You know? And
I
said,
did a letter.
I did it. So what?
So I just questioned the whole, what the fuck were these doctors looking at when they were evaluating him?
Yep.
Well, you gotta know. It's like you said back then. It wasn't so advanced as now, and now I guess they've done.
Well,
more
yeah.
research.
I mean, medicine. I mean, we're talking about what? This was in 1900, right? Let's just round it out to 1900. Yeah, it's over 100 years ago, and medicine has advanced shitload since then. But I don't know, man. I'm really like I'm like baffled here. And the fact that he, like, only God knows what he wrote in those letters. If the lawyer is saying, I will never read this to anybody, is the most gross shit I've ever read.
Yeah.
Probably just rambling. Gross shit.
He was probably detailing shit.
Yeah, it's it. Totally. It's
Yeah,
like what you read. It's missing a whole lot. So,
like,
whoever wants to read the thing, just look it up and look for the original letter.
Yeah, there's tons of information. Like, if you just look up Albert Fish, and you will find tons of shit. Like, yeah, tons of shit. We're just giving you what we thought was the information, right? The main information. And there are details there that I wish I wouldn't have had to read, but we're trying to give you the complete information, right? I mean, as strong as it sounds, which is why we keep doing a disclaimer for this episode. It's nasty.
Now you know why they call him the Brooklyn Vampire.
Brooklyn Vampire.
Yeah, but it's still, I find it such a sucky name.
Yeah, it is a sucky name, but that's the reason why.
Because it's like, okay, so he drank. Did I read that though? I don't even remember reading.
Yes.
Yeah, when he killed when he did Gaffney.
But it's just, the fact that he cut this boy's genitals, he cut off the ears, like took out his eyes, whipped. So he held to his body and drank his blood. Yeah, like, he wasn't even from Brooklyn though. This guy was from
I think he lived there.
like he moved to New York City where he was like prostituting himself and whatnot. But
True.
I don't know, but it's just I find it a stupid name.
No, it is. It's
Vampire.
stupid, period.
So let's call him the Boogeyman. I feel the Boogeyman is so
Boogeyman.
much.
Yeah, but then you
scarier.
know what? Everybody,
the gray
wants to be called the boogeyman because we've done a couple of episodes that they claim to be the boogeyman.
Yeah, but this guy, like think about it as a kid.
Oh no, hell
No,
yeah, yo.
Don't
Find
go
shit out.
don't go there because the gray man.
Boogeyman.
Who's the gray man? The Boogeyman.
Boogeyman, like,
See, that's better marketing right there.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it worked for Michael Myers.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we're gonna call this I don't know, the gray man, the gray
man.
boogeyman.
The the gray boogeyman.
It's not the same to say
Oh.
the gray boogeyman than the boogie gray man.
Oh, the gray man's boogie.
Or the gray man.
Or the gray booger.
Yeah, it's a different story there. So I don't know, man. If you that are listening thus far, thank you for listening. If you are watching, thank you for watching. If you found information that maybe we didn't read and you would like to comment, you can please drop the comment below. We will read and answer what deems an answer. I want to remind everyone, if you have your own story, if you have a grim story, paranormal, ghost story, I don't know.
Come on, anyone.
You want to read to us, you want to just write it, drop it in an email. We will read it. If it's interesting enough, we will read it and discuss it in one of our episodes. And what if you want to be a guest on the show and tell us your story personally? If you're full of shit, we will see right through it. So I'm just letting you know now. But yeah, you can also drop us a line at thegrimfixpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram as Grimfix Podcast. And if you are watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, comment below, share with your friends, share with your family. And if you're listening to us on podcasts, also follow the podcast, drop a review, give us a few stars. Just tell the people how wonderful we are. So I think we can leave it here. This has been the Grim Fix Podcast. We have discussed ham and eggs.
I still don't get that.
Hamilton
I understand the
Howard,
ham, but I don't get the egg part.
later known as Albert Fish, known as the Brooklyn Vampire, Boogeyman, the Gray Man.
Gray Man.
There's another one,
AKA Dr. Seuss.
right? Isn't there another one, though? There was another name. I don't have it here, but I do remember there was a few of them that they had. I was like, all right. So this has been the Grim Fix Podcast. Thank you so much. See you guys next week. Be
Peace.
safe.
Yes. Big Mac right now.
Damn, a Big Mac sounds amazing, right?
Yes.